Hey, what's going on, guys? My name's Isaac Painter, and I'm a cinematographer based here in mid-Michigan. Today I'm going to be teaching you guys my simple color grading process for DaVinci Resolve. I recently did one of these videos, but it was when I was still using Premiere Pro to edit my videos, so now that I have more advanced coloring tools, my style and my process has changed. So today I'm just going to be walking you through my process, so if you're into color grading and you want to learn how to use DaVinci Resolve, stick around. So we're in DaVinci Resolve 17.1 right here, and I have my clip and I'm in the color window, and you can see on my top right hand side is completely blank, but that's where we're going to create our nodes. So if you hit Option or Alt S on your computer, it's going to create a node. You're going to do that 3 times. For my process, I generally use 3 nodes. And then if you right click or double click on that node, you can come down to the node label and label your nodes. So I generally have correct, and then on my middle one, I totally misspelled correct, who cares. On my middle one, I am going to do tone, and then on my last one, I'm going to do grade. So essentially all nodes are, they look kind of daunting, but essentially all they are is layers for your color grade. So it's just really nice because if you want to adjust something that you made early on in the grade, you can go back to that node and turn it off or adjust it, and it's just a lot simpler and easier to get a consistent grade that way. So we have our 3 nodes. The first one is totally misspelled, but that's okay. So basically what I do with this first correct node is I will come over to the bottom left side here. I'm going to go to color wheels, and I use this offset right here. So if you can see on the bottom right hand side under our scopes, you see there's the red, blue, and green channels, and they're all spread out. Basically our goal here is to bring those closer together, and that just means that the color is going to be more accurate. So I'm going to start pushing this until they get closer together. Sometimes if you get them completely overlaid like that, it's just too far and it doesn't look good. So I'm going to go right there. That looks good to me. So then if we turn this off and on, you can see that made a pretty big difference and it looks more lifelike. So that's all I do on that node. So let's move on to the middle node, which is labeled tone. So we're going to come down on the bottom left side. We're going to go over to the curves. And basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to do a really simple S-curve just to add in some contrast. I generally lift the middle a little bit, lift the top a little bit here, and then drag down this top point. And sometimes I will lift my blacks just a tiny bit. So that was a super minor adjustment. If we turn that, that's before, that's after, just giving a little bit more punch. You'll find with my grading style, I generally don't go very heavy. I like to keep it pretty close to how it actually looks in real life. So let's move on to the third node now, and literally this is like where I'll do any color adjustments. So if I want to change the hue of a blue or a green or a red or skin tones, anything like that, this is where I'm going to do it. And again, this is the beauty of nodes because you can have all of your adjustments separate and you can go back and tweak them later. So here I'm going to go back to the color wheels, and I'm over here and there's the 3 dots. I'm in the last one in the primaries. And I'm just going to push the highlights a little bit to the yellow side. I generally like my highlights to be a little bit warmer. Midtones, I'm going to push red just a tiny bit, and then shadows, I'll barely pull down to the blue. So far that's very, very minor adjustment. Again, just small tweaks to make it a little more my style. And then we're going to go back over to curves, and you can see here at the top of the curves where it says curves, there's all of these different dots. We have hue versus hue, hue versus sat, hue versus loom, loom versus sat, sat versus sat, and sat versus loom. So I don't use all of these all the time. It depends on the clip. But for now I'm going to come into hue versus hue, and I'm going to come down here to these little dots and click on the blue and teal one, and then just adjust my blues. So I'm going to push my blues a little bit more towards teal. And then I'm going to select my yellows, because I think that's where the sand will fall, and try to change that and push that a little bit warmer so we get a little bit of color contrast here. Not too far. I want it to look real still. So somewhere in there is looking pretty good to me. So if I turn this off and back on, you see we're just making really, really minor adjustments. And then I'm going to hop over to the hue versus saturation and do the exact same thing. I'm going to select the blues here, and I'm going to pull the blues down a little bit. They're just looking a little bit too punchy for me, so I like that right there. And I'm going to select the reds and yellows for that sand again, and just kind of tweak that. I'm thinking about actually bumping it a little bit in saturation. That'll also affect our skin tones a little bit, so I don't want to do it too much. Somewhere in there is looking pretty good to me. So again, we turn this node off. That's before, that's after. Super minor adjustments. I made the blues a little more teal. This is just fine-tuning stuff, basically. So really at that point, I mean, that's kind of how I would leave it. Here's our before, here's our after with just this node. Let's see here. Here's our before of the clip, and then here is our after. So this is a very basic grade, mostly just kind of adjusting the colors that are already there. Color grading isn't about adding in new colors. That's not what color grading is at all, and it's not about resurrecting bad footage. I said that in my last color grading video. You have to get stuff right in camera first. So one of the most important things is going to be your white balance. Unless you're shooting raw video and you can change that in post, you have to get that nailed in camera. Otherwise, it's going to be baked into your footage, and you're not going to be able to change that. The other thing is exposure. Unless your camera has really good dynamic range, mine doesn't have amazing. I don't shoot in log because it doesn't have 10-bit video, so it doesn't look super good. So I have to shoot in Rec 709, and that doesn't give me super good dynamic range. So I really have to choose what I want to expose in camera. And as long as you get white balance and exposure correct in camera, you should be off to the races as far as your color grade goes. And really, guys, like I said before, I like a pretty natural look. I don't like super pumped up oranges and teals. That looks really amateur in my opinion. So this is kind of where I would leave it, honestly. I really like this look. I think it looks really nice. Looks pretty natural, very similar to what it looked like on that day, what I actually saw with my eyes. It just has a little more punch. The only other thing I would do is I might come back to the tone and over to the primaries, and I think I would just add maybe a little bit more contrast. Not a ton. So you don't want to go too far because then this will happen and it'll look like a 2000 Instagram filter. So I'm just going to add a little bit more, just right in there. See, that's not a huge adjustment. And our waveform is still looking good, so we're not crushing blacks, we're not blowing out the whites. And that is a big goal with color grading, is to make sure you're not blowing out anything. And really, guys, that's kind of it. That's kind of where I would leave this clip. I really, really enjoy color grading, and it's become a huge part of my filmmaking process now. I never used to really touch it, and now it's just become a huge part of my films because it helps you evoke so much more feeling through your videos. So I hope this video was helpful to you. If it was, I would love to have you subscribe and become part of this young filmmaker community. My goal over here is just to teach and learn with you guys, so we can just continue to grow this small community of young filmmakers. Whether you're young in age like I am, or you're young in your experience of filmmaking, I would love to have you join along with this. So if you like this video, subscribe, like the video, comment below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.